Hello dear viewers, and welcome to another video from me here in the ancient halls of our ancestors. I hope this finds you well. Today we'll be taking a look at the classic video game Nox. Nox is a two-dimensional top-down action role-playing game developed by Westwood Studios and published by Electronic Arts in the year 2000. Dear me, that was over 20 years ago, and yet it only feels like the other day. I think I still had a few hairs on the top of my head back then. Westwood were an old studio back from this old dwarf's past. They were responsible for some absolutely classic games like Dune 2 and the wonderful Command & Conquer games. Sadly, they are no longer around as they were destroyed, eaten and consumed by the monster that is EA. It is time in the video where I ask you, dear viewers, that if you haven't yet done so and like what I do here in the Ancient Dwarven Hold, then you might subscribe to my little channel. Also, if you like the video, perhaps consider giving us a like and comment down below on your experience with this game and other Westwood releases. Nox has a wonderful start menu. You can solo should you wish to solo. You can multiplayer. You can solo quest. You can play the intro. Look at those wonderful credits. Check what options there are in the aforementioned options screen, and lastly, you can quit. So, Nox is a top-down kind of action role-playing game. You don't see a lot of games in this genre featuring this kind of perspective. Indeed, they are usually found in strategy games, which is very much what Westwood knows about. Perhaps this is why, with their expertise in strategy games, they use this knowledge to help craft Nox. The graphical style is very much two-dimensional, with backgrounds and scenery hand-drawn and looking quite beautiful. The sprites representing your character and all of the various NPCs, non-playable characters, are wonderfully drawn and detailed. I must say this game is a great example of what can be done with two-dimensional pixel graphics. The animations are rich and full of flair. From a simple thing like a barrel being destroyed to sprite movements and skill effects, it is clear there was a lot of love put into the game. You could argue perhaps that some old 3D games from this period and beyond now look dated and of their time, while Nox still looks wonderful because of that great use of pixel artistry. For a fantasy RPG, it definitely feels quite magical. And if you are wondering, this game worked perfectly well on my Windows 10 machine while playing the good old games version. No problems at all, straight out of the box as it were. The sound is interesting too, adding to the fantasy feel of things with some wonderfully appropriate sound effects for smacking things with a weapon and casting spells. The sound made when my warrior charged across the screen always made me chuckle. A lot of dialogue is actually voiced and sounds good. Some of it is a little cheesy, but hey, isn't that what we want in our fantasy video games? When you start a new game, you will select a class from a choice of 3, Warrior, Conjurer and Wizard. With the Warrior, you wear heavy armour and smack things with mighty weapons. The Conjurer conjures things to help in battle, while also able to cast supporting spells like healing. And the Wizard is a spellcaster capable of invoking damaging spells, but it's a lot more squishy than the other two, as they cannot wear most armour encountered in the game. Once you've selected a class, the game starts out with your character in our world watching telly before he's sucked into the magical world of Nox by the evil necromancer Hecuba. You fall from the sky in this new world and land on the airship captain's flying ship. He then instructs us to begin the quest to acquire the various parts of the Staff of Oblivion, an ancient artifact capable of putting an end to Hecuba's evil schemes and hopefully get us back to Earth. From here, depending on what class you chose, you'll begin at 3 different locations throughout the world of Nox. Each starts with a tutorial level introducing you to the various features of the game before heading on to the game in earnest. The game is split up into different chapters, within which you'll traverse the world of Nox in your search for the pieces of the Staff of Oblivion. Each chapter has its own fairly linear level for you to explore and fulfill whatever quest you have been given, usually by the airship captain. So it isn't an open world game, rather the chapter sets what location you'll be moving through. There are some locations like friendly towns or characters' houses that you will visit several times, but generally each chapter brings with it new locations for you to engage with. While you're on your travels, you'll come across naughty creatures that wish to test the might of a mighty dwarven, human hero. I played the warrior, so most of my combat took the form of smacking stuff with a big weapon. This involves some enthusiastic click on said baddie while also trying not to get hit yourself in response. The warrior had the aforementioned charge, which was always good fun to fly across the screen with, as well as other skills like a shout that confused spellcasters, or a skill that detected hidden things. If you were the wizard or the conjurer, you would also make use of various spells to dispatch these followers of evilry. The combat as a warrior was alright enough. Several baddies would run from you while others would come rushing towards you. Combat with the warrior, at least, is not some groundbreaking endeavour, but it is fun enough for the time I spent with the game. As you might expect, there is equipment that you can equip to your character as you progress. This takes the form of what you would expect, such as pieces of armour, weapons and a fancy cloak. There isn't much of a character screen displaying the different slots you have, instead simply highlighting in your inventory whichever item you currently had equipped. The game could definitely have done with a proper character screen clearly showing what you had equipped, but it's not the end of the world. I will tell you something that did irk me, dear viewers, and that was item durability. As you battle the evil creatures of the land, your gear will lose durability. It will go yellow in your inventory screen, then turn red, and then should you not repair it, it will simply fall to dust and be lost forever. This wouldn't be too bad if the cost of repairing items was reasonable, but it isn't. It got so expensive to repair things towards the end that I couldn't actually afford to repair anything. This meant I'd reuse an item until it went red and then equip anything else I could get my hands on. This system could really have benefited with another look by the developers. The world of Nox is filled with all sorts of weird and wonderful creatures, a lot of which want to put an end to our intrepid hero. Many, like imps and such, are fairly easy to dispatch, while others, like golems or those crazy spellcasters later in the game, are quite lethal should you not approach them with caution. You need to make use of the skills available to you along with the equipment, like flaming weapons, to properly destroy zombies. Nothing is earth-shatteringly challenging, but you can easily get gibbed by some magic missile or slapped to death should you not be on your toes. As you perform various tasks and defeat evilry, you will gain experience, and once enough has been accrued, you will increase in level. Initially, for the warrior at least, once you gain a level, you also gain access to a new skill, eventually filling out the action bar at the bottom of the screen. I imagine this would be much the same for any other class that you'd selected. After you've gained all the skills to your action bar, further levels don't give you any extra skills, only increasing your health, I think. There aren't any of the usual attributes you increase, nor are there skill trees you can invest in points in, so you will always get the same skills at any given level. The only real way to customise your character in any form is through the affixes on items, for example of Dragon Zap, Dragon Scale or Healing. You can make a decision, early on at least, dear viewers, of what items you think will help you best, though often the choice isn't all that grand. I did get a lot of weapons though with all sorts of different affixes like Life Steal, Impact, Shock and Fire. So at meat at least, he says to himself, Nox feels more like an action-adventure with some RPG features rather than a proper RPG of sorts. That is alright though. Nox is a fun adventure-filled game with action and wonderful art style. The main campaign doesn't take tens of hours to complete, and with the simple controls it is also quite approachable. There is some replayability too, with you able to play through the game using one of the other classes, involving some different levels and of course their own unique playstyle. I think Nox is a solid game that stands the test of time well with its magical aesthetic and is well worth a look in the modern day. It is available on Good Old Games and is usually pretty cheap, so check it out. And there we go, dear viewers, another video from this here dwarf. I do struggle a lot with my silly brain that gets sad a lot, but playing these games and making these videos is good fun that can bring cheer to my day. I hope you like watching them. Goodbye from me, and I will see you next time.